Don't worry about Joan. She'll be happy puttering in the kitchen. And honestly, it's time we made the lake place ours. I read that sentence twice, standing in my own kitchen on an ordinary Tuesday, with the kettle not yet on. It was my daughter-in-law's voice, even in writing. Bright, certain, the kind of confidence that never imagines being overheard. I had been added to that family group months ago, for some birthday or other, and then forgotten there, the way you forget an old coat in a closet. They had stopped seeing me on it, so they talked freely. And there it all was, scrolled out in front of me like a guest list to my own funeral. Christmas at the lake house, 20 people, a caterer Vanessa had already booked. Room assignments, typed out neat as a hotel ledger. The big bedroom for her and Brian. The Lakeview rooms for her sister and the cousins. And down at the bottom, almost as an afterthought, where they would put me. The small room off the kitchen, the one we always used for storage. The lake house, my lake house, the one Tom built with his own 2 hands, the summer our son learned to walk. I did not gasp. I want you to understand that. There was no hand flying to my chest, no cry. I have lived long enough to know that the deepest hurts do not announce themselves loudly. They arrive quietly, the way cold comes under a door. I set the phone down on the counter, gently the way you are careful with a thing that has just cut you. Then I looked across the room. There is a little row of hooks by my back door, brass ones Tom screwed into the wall decades ago. House keys, car key, the key to the shed. And at the end, worn soft and golden from 40 years of hands, the key to the lake house. I had hung it there myself the day after his funeral, because I could not bear to carry it and could not bear to lose it. I looked at that key for a long time. It's time we made the lake place ours. They thought the house was already theirs. They thought the only thing left to settle was which bedroom I would be tidied away into, while they celebrated in the rooms my husband built. And standing there, something in me went very still and very clear. Not angry, clearer than angry. But I had not changed those locks on a whim. I changed them the morning after I read a message I was never meant to see. First, though, I had to sit across from them and smile and let them believe I knew nothing at all. I did not answer that thread. I did not type a single word. Instead, the next morning, I called my son. The way a mother calls her boy on any ordinary day, with the radio on low and a cup of coffee going cold beside me. "Brian," I said, "I hear there's talk of Christmas at the lake." "Oh, good, you saw," he said, easy as anything. No pause, no catch in his voice. "Yeah, Vanessa's got the whole thing handled, Mom. You don't even have to lift a finger. Just do your famous ham and let her run with the rest." He laughed a little. "You don't mind, right? You don't mind, right?" As if my house were a hall they were renting, and I were the woman who came with it. "Of course not," I said. "I'll do the ham." And that was that. He never asked if I wanted 20 strangers in Tom's house. He never asked if I wanted to host at all, or whether I might like, for once, to be a guest at my own table instead of the help. He never asked if I wanted to come. An hour later, Vanessa's text arrived, cheerful as a Christmas card. A little checklist, just for me. "Joan Ham, your rolls, the good tablecloths, and can you have the back room cleared out by the 23rd so we have storage? You're a gem." A small heart at the end. The back room. So I would clear out the storage room myself, to sleep in the house my husband built. While her sister took the room with the view of the water, Tom and I used to watch the sun come up over. I read it twice. Then I typed back, warm as anything. Happy to, looking forward to it. I even added a little heart of my own. Because here is what I have learned in 73 years. A woman who has already decided does not need to argue. Arguing is for people still hoping to change someone's mind. I had stopped hoping. And a quiet woman is a woman nobody watches. They mistook my yes for gratitude. It was the last thing I ever said yes to on their terms. That night, I could not sleep, and in the dark, my mind did not go to the message at all. It went back. All the way back to the summer, the lake house was only a frame and a promise, and a man with sawdust in his hair. Tom built that dock the summer Brian was 3. I can still see him out there in the shallow water, with his trousers rolled up, setting each board by hand, sweating through his shirt, while our boy splashed around his ankles. He wasn't a builder by trade. He was an insurance man with careful hands and more patience than any person I ever knew. But he wanted his family to have a place on the water, and so board by board, summer by summer, he made one. The house came the same way. A frame and a promise the first year, walls the next. A real kitchen the year after that, with a window over the sink so I could watch the children while I cooked. He used to say he built that window for me special, so I'd never have my back to the lake. And I filled those rooms. Lord, how I filled them. 40 years of summers. I taught every grandchild we had to swim off the end of that dock, holding their bellies in the cold water until the day each one of them kicked away from my hands and didn't need me to hold on anymore. I made pancakes on Saturday mornings that brought them stumbling out of bed by the smell alone. And the winters were my favourite. The lake froze hard and white, and we'd build a fire that roared up the chimney. Tom laid stone by stone, and the whole house would smell like cinnamon and wood smoke and roasting meat. Christmas after Christmas, that house held every person I loved, all under one roof, warm against the cold coming off the ice. I hosted all of it, gladly. I never once felt used, because back then I wasn't. Back then they came to be together, and I was the heart of together. The cooking was not labour. It was love I knew how to make with my hands. I believed, the way you believe in the ground under your feet, that the lake house was the one thing that would always be mine. The one place that would always hold my family around me, no matter how far the world pulled them. I had filled that house with 40 years of my family. I never imagined they'd start counting me as furniture. But hope is a strange thing. It keeps you from seeing what's right in front of you, until one day you can't stop seeing it. It did not happen all at once. That is the thing about being slowly set aside. There is no single morning you can point to. There is only the day you finally turn around and see how far back the path goes. After Tom died, I became the caretaker of the place instead of the heart of it. The difference is quiet, but it is everything. They started arriving without asking. A text on a Thursday. We're heading up to the lake this weekend. That okay? But already on the road as they sent it, so it was never really a question. I'd drive up after to find wet towels on Tom's good floors, the dock chairs left out in the rain, the fridge cleared out and never refilled. I cleaned it all, every time, and told myself that was just what mothers did. Then Vanessa redid the kitchen. My kitchen. She called it modernizing. I came up one spring and the window Tom built me, the one so I'd never have my back to the lake, had been boxed in behind a bank of grey cabinets. She'd thrown out his hand-tiled counter without a word to me. It was getting dated, Joan, she said, like she'd done me a kindness. I stood there and could not find my own kitchen in it. She'd taken to calling it our lake place to her friends. I heard her do it. The 4th of July was when I finally felt it land. I drove up with a cooler of food, and the driveway was full of cars I didn't know. Vanessa was on my porch with a glass of wine, hosting strangers. She saw me, and her face did something polite. "Oh, Joan, we didn't really need you to cook, but..." And she pressed a tray into my hands. "Would you mind passing these around?" So I did. I passed hors d'oeuvres at my own party, and a woman I'd never met took one off my tray and smiled and asked, "Are you the lady who looks after the place?" "Something like that," I said. There was only one mercy that whole long day. My granddaughter Nora, 20 now, quiet, watchful, set down her drink, took up the second tray, and worked the room beside me without being asked. "Sit with me after, Grandma," she whispered. She was the only one who still called me just to talk, about nothing, about everything, the way family used to. But it was the thing I overheard a few weeks before Christmas that I could not put down. Vanessa, low, to my son. "She should just sign the lake house over now, Brian. While it's simple, the way things are going, we could use what it's worth." And my son didn't say no. He didn't say anything at all. What Vanessa didn't know, as she planned her perfect Christmas, was that the house she was so freely giving away had only ever carried one name on the deed. It was mine. I drove home that night, with that thought turning over and over in me, and I did not sleep at all. It was late, and the house in town was dark and still, the way it always is now. I made myself a cup of tea at the kitchen table and let it go cold in front of me, the steam rising and thinning and gone, and I did not drink a drop of it. Tom's photograph sat on the windowsill where it always sits. Him on the dock, squinting into the sun before the grey came into his hair. I looked at him for a long while. I will tell you the truth. I cried a little there in the dark, but not the way you might think. I did not cry because Vanessa had handed me a tray, or because she meant to fold me into a storage room at Christmas. Those were only the proof. I cried because of how long I had let it happen, how many weekends I had driven up to clean their mess and called it love, how many times I had passed the tray and swallowed the word. I had made myself the unpaid keeper of my own marriage, the caretaker of my own memories, waiting, always waiting, to be invited back into a house that already had my name on it. And somewhere in that cold cup of tea, the grief turned. It hardened into something steadier, something clear. I was done waiting to be wanted. A woman should not have to be invited into her own home, so I stopped asking whether they still wanted me there. I started asking whose name was on the door. I got up, my knees stiff from sitting so long, and went to the front room, to the old oak drawer where Tom kept his papers. He was a careful man, my husband. An insurance man. He filed everything, labelled everything in that steady hand of his. I knelt down and worked through the folders until I found it, exactly where he would have put it, Lake House, and clipped to the inside a little yellowed business card. Raymond Cole, attorney at law. The man who had handled everything for us back when there was an us. In the morning, I called him. Raymond Cole's office smelled of old paper and coffee, and he was greyer than I remembered. But his handshake was the same. He'd handled things for Tom and me for 30 years. He didn't rush me. He just pulled the file and laid the deed flat on the desk between us and turned it so I could read it. "It's simple, Joan," he said. "The lake house is yours. Solely. It always has been." I looked down at the page. My name. Only my name. No joint ownership. No clause, leaving it to Brian. Tom had bought it, built on it, paid it off, and kept it in my name alone. And every time anything changed over the years, a refinance, an update to the survey, Cole told me Tom had renewed it the same way, on purpose, every single time. And then I was not in that office anymore. I was on the dock, on a warm August evening years ago, the light going gold across the water. Tom was drying his hands on an old rag, looking up at the cabin he'd built, and he said it the way he said it every summer, quiet, almost offhand. "Keep this in your name, Joni. Always. Houses are the thing families forget their manners over." I'd laughed at him. I'd swatted his arm and told him not to be morbid, that nobody in our family would ever fight over anything. He just smiled and let it go. I was not laughing now. He hadn't known. I want to be clear about that because it matters. My husband was not a man who saw the future. He didn't know what Vanessa would become, or how my own son would learn to look past me. He was simply a careful man who had spent his life watching families come apart over property, and he wanted his wife protected. That was all. It wasn't a prophecy. It was just Tom, being Tom, one more time. He'd said it to me every summer for years, and it had taken me until that week to truly hear it. "There's something else," Cole said, and his voice changed slightly. "Brian's been paying the property tax bill the last 2 years, and he had himself added as an authorized party on the insurance." I looked up. "Legally, it's paper thin," he said. "It gives him no claim worth the name. But Joan," he took off his glasses. "People don't do that by accident. That's the kind of thing a person does when they're laying groundwork." The floor I'd thought was crumbling under me had been solid the whole time. And now, at last, I could see the hands that had been quietly working at it. I thanked Raymond, and I drove north, to the lake. The lake was grey and still when I pulled in, the trees bare, the water dark, and waiting for the freeze. I'd called a locksmith from town that morning, a man named Earl who'd put a new deadbolt on my shed years back. He met me in the drive with his toolbox and didn't ask a single question, which I was grateful for. He just worked. The front door, the side door, the door off the kitchen, the boathouse, one by one, the old locks came out and new ones went in. When he was done, he dropped the new keys into my open hand. 3 of them, bright and silver, with the sharp edges they have before years of pockets wear them smooth. I closed my fingers around them. They were cold, and they were new, and they were mine. I want you to understand what this was, and what it wasn't. It was not revenge. I did not change those locks to hurt anyone. I changed them because it was my door, and a person has the right to decide who walks through it. That is all it ever was. A woman locking her own house. Then I sat in the cold cab of my car and called Raymond Cole, and we did the quieter things. I told him to find out the exact amount of property tax Brian had paid, down to the penny, and to send him a check for all of it. I would not owe my son a single dollar he could later call a claim. And I had Cole strike Brian's name from the insurance, so there was not one thread left for anyone to pull. And then the thing that mattered most of all, we began the papers to put the lake house into a trust. Mine to live in and control for as long as I drew breath, and after me, to go to Nora, the one who took up the second tray, the one who still called. It would be hers one day, and it could never again be pressured, or sold out from under me, or signed over while it was simple. The locksmith finished by noon. By 2 o'clock I had done the quieter thing, the one that mattered more than any lock. Before I left, I sat on the cold porch with a little notebook from my purse, and I wrote one line on the first page. Only one. Then I drove home and waited for them to notice. Here is the part they never thought about. They had forgotten me on that group thread. They never took me off. So I sat in my quiet kitchen in town and watched the whole thing come apart in real time, an invisible woman reading her own family's plans. It started 2 days before Christmas. Vanessa had hired a cleaner to go up and prep the house, and the woman drove all that way only to find she couldn't get in. She posted it to the thread, confused. "Hi all, sorry, but my key isn't working at the lake house. None of the doors will open." For a moment, nothing. Then the panic. "What do you mean it won't open?" Vanessa wrote. Then, a minute later, my phone buzzed on its own. A direct text from her, the cheerfulness gone. "Joan, is there something wrong with the lake house locks? We have 20 people coming Christmas Eve." I waited a little before I answered. "Oh? That's strange. Nothing more." Then came the next one, and this is the one that told me everything. "Joan, please. You're going to ruin Christmas for the grandchildren if you're playing games." The grandchildren. She reached for the grandchildren the moment the door wouldn't open. 3 weeks of silence, and now my phone wouldn't stop. Not one message asked how I was. Not one. Every single one asked about the house. I set the phone down and let them spin, and on the thread they spun, Brian saying he'd call me. Vanessa saying don't, she'll just deny it, we'll deal with it when we get there. And then, near the bottom, the message I had been waiting for without even knowing it. Vanessa, breezy again, taking charge, certain she'd sought the old woman out face to face, heading up now. "We'll be there by 6. Don't be difficult, Joan." 6 o'clock. I read it twice, the way I'd read that first cruel sentence twice, weeks before. Only this time, I was not the one being managed. Now I knew exactly when to be on the porch. There was one more message, though. It came to me alone, not the thread. "Grandma, are you okay? I've been thinking about you. Call me if you need anything." Nora, the only one, in all of it, who asked about me instead of the house. I put on my warm coat, and I drove north to wait. I got there before 5. I turned on the porch light and left every window behind me dark, and I sat down in my coat in Tom's old chair to wait. The cold came up off the lake the way it always does, and I didn't mind it. I had waited 4 years to feel like the owner of this house again. I could wait another hour in the cold. At 6, the headlights came. Brian's SUV first, swinging up the gravel drive, the beams sweeping across the dark windows. Then, another car behind it. Then a third. Doors opened, and the night filled with the sounds of them coolers being lifted. Gift bags rustling, Vanessa's voice already organizing, the cousins, a few faces I didn't even know she'd invited. Vanessa came up the path fast, her arms full, and she didn't even see me sitting there in the shadow of the porch. She went straight for the door with her key. It didn't turn. She frowned and tried it again, jiggling it. The way you do when you think the lock is just stiff, still, nothing. A third time, harder now, her shoulder to the door. She tried her key 3 times. I let her try it 3 times before I said a single word. "It won't work, Vanessa," I said. "I had the locks changed." She spun around. She found me in the chair, and her face went through 3 different things before it settled on outrage. "What, Joan? What is this? You can't do this. We have people here. We have children in the car." "It's my house," I said. I did not raise my voice. There was no need. It has always been my house. Brian came up the steps then, looking from his wife to his mother. "Mom, come on. What's going on? Just open the door. We'll talk inside." "No, Brian." I stood up slowly. "We'll talk right here, where you planned all of this without me. Every one of you discussed this Christmas. The menu. The rooms. Which one you'd put me in. The storage room, wasn't it? And not one of you, in all those messages, asked me a single question." The guests had gone quiet behind the cars. Vanessa's voice climbed. "You're being dramatic. We were doing you a favor. You can't manage this place anymore." "You didn't plan a Christmas at my house," I said. "You planned to take it. There's a difference, and you knew it when you wrote it down." And for one moment, my son's face changed. The outrage left it, and underneath I saw the boy who learned to swim off that dock, the boy who knew, somewhere in him, that every word I'd said was true. He looked at the ground. Then it passed. The wall came back up, the way it does in men who've decided not to look too closely at themselves. "Mom," he said, quieter, "you're embarrassing us." I almost smiled. Almost. There was a great deal more they needed to hear, so I told them. "This house has one name on the deed," I said. "It always has. Tom put it there, and he kept it there, on purpose, not Brian's name. Not yours, Vanessa, mine." The cold had a way of carrying my voice across that quiet drive. Nobody interrupted me now. "And as of last week, it's held in a trust. I live here and decide things here for as long as I'm alive. And when I'm gone, it goes to Nora." I found her face in the crowd, near the cars, her eyes already wet. "Because she's the only one who ever loved this place more than she wanted it." Vanessa's mouth opened, but what came out was smaller than before. "Joan, you don't understand. We needed—" She stopped herself, but I had already heard it, and in her face, under all that anger, I finally saw it plain. Fear. And then I understood the sentence I'd overheard all those weeks before. The way things are going, Brian's business had had a brutal year, and a refinance they'd been counting on had just fallen through. In their fear, the two of them had looked at this house, my house, and seen a way out. I understood it. I want you to know that I did. I had been afraid for money before, in the early years, and I knew the cold weight of it. I even grieved for them, standing there. But understanding a thing is not the same as allowing it. A hard year is a hard thing, I said gently now. But it does not make my home your collateral. You could have come to me. You could have asked. Instead, you tried to take it while I wasn't looking. Then I heard a small voice from one of the cars. A child, cold and confused. And whatever else was true, the children had done nothing. The little ones must be freezing, I said. I took out my new key, and I opened my own door. Send them in. There's Coco, and I'll get the fire going. The children are always welcome here. I looked at the adults. You are welcome too, as my guests. When you knock, I sent the babies into the warmth and let the grown ones stand a while longer in the cold with what they'd done. Because here is the truth I had finally come to. I didn't lock them out of my heart. I only locked them out of the rooms they'd stopped knocking on. The cars began to leave, one by one, their tail lights bleeding red down the dark road. But there was one person in all those headlights who never shouted at me. She didn't get into any of the cars. She came up the steps and sat down beside me, the way she used to climb up next to me when she was small. For a moment, neither of us said anything. We just looked out at the black water and the last red lights disappearing down the road. I hated it, Grandma, Nora finally said. Her voice was thick. The way they talked about you. The lady who looks after the place. Putting you in the storage room. I hated all of it. And I never said anything. And I'm sorry. You were one girl in a family that had already made up its mind, I told her. That was never yours to fix. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. This house with you in it, she said, is the only place I've ever really felt at home. I reached over and took her cold hand in mine. Then I should tell you something, I said. One day this house is going to be yours. I put it in writing. Because you're the only one who ever loved it the way I do. She turned to look at me, and she started to cry. Not the way you cry over a gift, but the way you cry when someone has finally seen you. I don't care about the house, Grandma, she said. I just didn't want to lose you. And there it was. All those years I thought my love had been poured out and wasted on people who barely tasted it. It hadn't all been wasted. It had been sitting beside me on a cold porch step the whole time, waiting for me to turn my head and see it. Come on, I said, and I stood and held out my hand. Help me light the fire. It's been too long since this house had a proper Christmas in it. We went inside together, and I shut my own door behind us against the cold. Christmas morning came up clear and cold over a white lake. The fire I'd laid the night before was still going, and I fed it another log and watched the sparks climb up the chimney. Tom laid stone by stone. It was a small morning. Just Nora and the two littlest ones, who'd come back with their parents' quiet blessing to spend the day with their grandmother. Outside the window, Tom built me the one I'd torn the grey cabinets away from that very week, so the lake could come back into my kitchen where it had always belonged. The water lay frozen and white and perfect, the way it had every Christmas of my life. Their mother had texted me one word that morning. Sorry, I would take it. Sorry is a door, and doors can be walked through when people are finally ready to knock. Tom's photograph sat on the mantel where I'd set it, watching over the room. I hung the one ornament that has always mattered to me. On the tree, a little wooden loon he carved. The first winter we owned the place. The children laughed at the fire. The cocoa went around. The house smelled like cinnamon and wood smoke again, the way it was always meant to. At some point, I slipped my hand into my coat pocket and felt the new key there. Already, in just a week, it had begun to wear smoother against my fingers, the way a thing does when it truly belongs to you. and I took out my little notebook and I opened it to the single line I'd written on that cold porch the day I changed the locks. I'd written it when it wasn't true yet. I read it now, and it was. This house holds the people who love me, not the ones who only love what it's worth. I am not bitter. I want you to hear that, whoever you are, listening to an old woman tell her story. I am not alone, and I am not angry. I am home, on my own terms, in the house my husband built and put in my name, with the people who actually want to be here. Tom built that dock to hold weight. He kept the deed in my name to hold something heavier. I didn't raise my voice that Christmas. I just turned a key. Sometimes dignity does not arrive with shouting.